Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that if you were to be aware of the sin attached with passing in front of a musalli, you would rather wait for 40. The narrator of the hadith actually forgotten whether Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said 40 days, months, or years. But the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu confirmed that it was 40. So he recorded as 40 years. So obviously it is quite a significant issue there. So how far can we put or should we put the sutra? And how far are we allowed to walk in front of the musalli, whether there is sutra or not? So in a small masjid, in a small prayer place, no one can pass in front of musalli no matter how close or far you are from the person. And a small masjid is described or defined as 40 cubits. If the masjid is about 40 cubits, which is arm's length, so 40 arm's length, then that masjid is considered small. And in this case, even if you are just coming way in front of him and the person is praying right at the back of the masjid, you cannot walk in front of the musalli regardless. It would be sinful. The large masjid is large masjid, obviously, larger than that. So where should we put the sutra, or how far can we move in front of the sutra if there was no sutra there? So if the person is praying, how far can we move in front of him? So the person, when he's praying and he's standing in prayer, he's looking at the sajda point, his visual field, which is where he could see up to. No one can pass unless it is beyond that point. So the ulama has actually worked it out. Allama Rashid Ludhianwi rahmatullah alayhi, Mufti Sahab, he worked it out to be about 2 rows, which is about 8 feet in Ahsan al-Fatawa. So you can walk in front of the musalli if there was no sutra, no barrier, as long as you are at least 2 saf away from him. So what is barrier? The barrier is something which is erected or put in place in front of the person who is praying in order for others to go ahead of it. It is recommended that we should put that, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in a hadith, that each one of you should have a barrier even with an arrow. You should even put an arrow there. The height is about a length, arm's length or more. Because of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned like the mu'khira, which is the saddle of the camel. The back of that saddle is called mu'khira. So mu'khira is the long rod or something that the person sitting on the camel would lean against if he or she gets tired. So that long thing is called mu'khira. So it should be about that, so which is almost an arm's length, up to elbow. And it should be about a finger width breadth. So that should be this much wide. Not a pencil, not a very thin thing. And it is sunnah to keep it close to musalli, not too far away. So ideally, maximum 3 arms length. So try to keep it where the sajda place is and in front of that, straight in front of that. Now, normally people try to keep it in the center, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's blessed practice was that he would put it in front of his right eyebrow, not in the center, not in front of his nose, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, little bit on the side. So wherever the sutra is, you just go behind it and to the left a little bit. So it is in line with your right eyebrow. And it is, as I said, the right eyebrow is preferable. You can do on the left as well. If you do not find anything, if you do not have anything to put, you're in open field somewhere, then you can actually draw a line. Now there's difference of opinion whether you draw a line is straight. So you are standing in front of Qibla, facing the Qibla, where the sajda place is, draw a straight line vertically up. Whereas other scholars would say make an arc, a crescent shape line in front of you. That would be your sutra. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one hadith, he said if someone has a sutra in front of him and he's praying behind it, and someone tries to come in front of the sutra, means coming between him and the sutra, one is allowed to stop him. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you can actually push him, you can fight him, but it is recommended that we shouldn't do that. I will come to that in a minute. Now, how do you indicate to the person who is trying to come in front of you, between you and the sutra? You can either say Subhanallah, and or you can just indicate with your hand. You can, move your hand in front of the person. You can indicate with your head or with your hand, or you just say Subhanallah. But to do both, in extending your hand and also saying Subhanallah, this is considered offensive. This is makruh. This is not allowed. Men can raise their voice if they're reciting Quran. For example, if they were doing Fajr, Maghrib or Isha and they're reciting Surah Fatiha or any surah, they can increase the volume a bit. So that would be a hint to the person that this person is praying. Maybe he's thinking about something else. If it was a Dhuhr or Asr prayer, which means that you are reciting quietly, then you can increase your volume a little bit just to hint to him for one word or few words, but not too many, obviously, so that he knows. So, for example, you are reciting Wal Asr Innal Insana Lafi Khusr. So, as someone is trying to come close to you, say Illa Alladhina Amanu. So, obviously, he would get attracted by that. He would just have a quick look. He would be nudged by that. So, that would be enough. For women, they're allowed to indicate, or they can clap. They're not supposed to say Subhanallah. They cannot hint and clap at the same time, as the men cannot combine the two. Rather, they should just clap. So the clapping would be done in two ways. Either by doing this, which I cannot show you, which is with one hand and the fingers of that hand tapping on the base of the palm. You can hear me. Either that, or you can just use the back of the fingers of right hand and tap on, the left hand, and tap on the palm of the left hand. So right fingers back, going on the, like this, a couple of times, one or two. Okay. So that would be a way of indication of clapping. But the first one is better, whereby you do not have to use too many, two different hands. As I said, although fighting was permissible, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if someone comes in front of you, you try to fight him if he doesn't listen to you. So you're trying to stop him by indicating or by saying Subhanallah, but he is insistent that he would want to go in front of you. You actually can push him. But that pushing, saying Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he said that you can push him, scholars have understood to mean either literally you can push him, because the hadith said, even if you killed him, or you should kill him because he is shaitan. That's a hadith. But this is, according to a group of scholars, would be acted upon and it is permissible. If you did it, that's okay. Or it's preferred that you push the person away. Now, majority of the scholars and the Hanafi scholars would say, no, it is only to express the gravity of the situation. Means if you were to push the person away and he gets hit, by something, maybe his head being hit to the wall or something else, and he dies, you have not got any sin or blame on you. Rather, he is the one who will be sinful for trying to come between you and your sutra. So this is just showing the severity or the gravity of the action. Hence the hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if you were to be aware of the sin attached to this particular action by walking in front of a musalli, then you would rather wait for 40 days or month or year. And as I mentioned, Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu said it was 40 years. What they say, Mufti Taqi Usmani Damat Barakatuh, he's explained it to say that this is just to show the gravity, the gross nature of that particular action. So one should not try and do it at all. It is like saying of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if someone is trying to look inside your house without being permitted, so you go and knock at someone's house and there is a hole there, keyhole or any other hole, and someone is trying to peek through that, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that you should poke his eyes with a spear or something. And obviously it does not mean that you do it, it means that you would rather, means that the sin is so grave, the action is so gross, it is so not at all okay for a Muslim to do so. So the Hanafis would say this is actually Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is emphasizing the dislike of this action and the abhorrence of this action. So one should try and never do that. So going in front of a musalli is a big problem. Now the question is, can we do that in haram? And many people think that it is okay to go and do that in haram. There's no difference with regards to haram and non-haram as per the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But practically there are many more people in haram when you're performing Hajj and Umrah. So there has to be some dispensation. So some scholars have given that and they suggested that should be okay. But again, the original rule remains that you shouldn't unless you have to. You shouldn't unless you are bound to. It would delay you unnecessarily. It would delay you and give you a bit of hardship. It would cause undue stress to you or the duress to you. So in both of those situations, when you are really delayed or when you're really having hardship by waiting because you have got something else to do or you have got some other chores to do or you have got some other person who is unwell or sick to attend and someone waiting outside or you need to go to toilet, any of those actions which you are in a way not able to control, which is beyond your control, so you have to carry on walking. In that case you can do that, inshallah ta'ala, you would not be sinful. But when you can, so you're walking and you found that there's a person praying in front of you, rather than going in front, you try to go from behind, even if it means that you have to detour a little bit. That may mean that you've got extra 10 seconds. That's fine. Sharia would not consider that to be a valid reason or excuse to walk in front of a person praying. Another issue is that if someone is praying in front of the musalli, so you are praying and someone was praying behind you, and you finish your prayer and you want to walk out of the masjid, and this person is praying behind you, what do? So you look to the right and to the left before you turn away. So, there's an important message there. Whenever you stand up after your prayer, whenever you are about to leave the masjid, look behind you. Look behind you. Someone may be praying behind you. Someone may be completing their sunnah or their missed prayer as a masbook. So one should try and look around, find out what's happening right and left, and whichever side is closest to the exit, he should take that. Means if you look at the person behind you, he's more towards right. He's more towards your right than the left. Then you just should go from the left or other way, vice versa. If he's really behind you exactly, then you have a choice. Now, if there's a person who is praying in a masjid just by the door and blocking everyone else in the masjid, knowingly or being negligent, and there's no other way for the person to go out, he may be sinful for that as well. If there was another option for that person who is walking in front of the musalli, he had another gate to go from, or he had another exit point, he should have taken that exit point rather than going in front of musalli. But if he opted to go in front of musalli when there was alternative, that person who walked in front of the musalli would be sinful. And if there was alternative for the person who's praying to pray behind a sutra, he opted to pray in front of the exit, in front of the gate, and the person who was planning to cross him has an option to go from different side, but he opted to go and cross the musalli, means they both made a mistake. Rather than doing the appropriate thing, they went for the wrong options. They both would be sinful. Okay, so we should be very careful. Now, if you're praying in front of someone, but that person is actually to the quite right of you, or there are two people behind you, and there's a small gap in between, so you can walk straight in between them, even if you're a little bit in front of the person who is praying there, because in this situation you're not crossing him. So crossing the person is not permissible. Not straight coming in front of him and then going to the to outside of the masjid. So two men praying together, and you are praying in front of them, and when you stood up, there was a small gap between the two, and you walked in between them from the front. That is fine, even if it means that you had crossed them a little bit, not completely crossed from this end to that end, rather a little bit, because you have not technically crossed them. When can you cross someone? If you are praying behind Imam. So the Imam Sahib is leading the prayer and you are praying behind him. Then that Imam is your sutra. Is sutra for everyone. So no one is allowed to go in front of that Imam. For the Musallis, Imam is the sutra. So if someone has a need to attend to, for example, he broke his wudu, he needs to go straight out to the toilet. By the way, there's a point there. Some people find it very embarrassing and they feel a bit shy to leave the masjid straight away. They rather continue with their prayer, and then once everyone finished, they just sneak out and do their wudu, thinking that obviously no one knows and I'm okay, but they have committed a sin. By staying in the masjid and in this state of, or in jama'ah with people, after having the wudu broken, they have committed sin. So it is completely disliked and not at all okay. People should move out. You shouldn't be feeling embarrassed about that. This is something which is natural. In fact, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that someone who passed when he said, "How could you laugh at something which you do yourself?" So this is a very bad thing, and unfortunately, it has crept among even practicing Muslims, people always find it a bit more uh, amusing somehow. I don't know why, but this is a practice, and that's actually not right. And one of the understanding of the ayah of Quran, uh, Nadikumul Munkar, from the people of Lut alayhi salam, this one interpretation is this is about passing wind, and they used to pass wind with loud voice. They would try to make a loud noise, and then people would laugh on that, and that is not at all okay. It shouldn't be done. It is a bad thing. We should not, do not do that. That's not on at all. Anyway, so if someone has broken their wudu, they can go in front of the musallis in the saf. However many people they have to cross, it's okay because sutra is imam. Now, if the person who is praying behind the imam was a masbuq, and masbuq is a person who has missed one or more rakat in the jamaat, so he is behind the imam. Imam said assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, prayer finished, he stood up to continue with his prayer. He is still actually behind that imam because his prayer has not completed yet. Can you go in front of him? You shouldn't. Ideally, you should try and avoid that. This is safest opinion, and we should stick with that, inshallah ta'ala. So that was sutra. So I hope it's clear that we should try our best to not cross any person who is praying. But obviously, if there was a desperate situation, then one should always pray behind a sutra anyway. And if you see someone is praying there, and the person in front needs to cross, you can actually put your hand in front of that praying person because you're in the saf ahead, so that the people next to you can walk in front of him. So this man is in the second saf and you are in the first saf, and someone from your right side wants to go to the left side, and the person on your left has already left. The person on your left side has already gone, so there is a gap between the person praying behind in the second saf and the person who wants to walk in front of him. So obviously he is not two saf ahead of this person and he wants to cross, but you happen to be in the front saf but on the right side a little bit, so you can put your hand, extend it and put it in front of the musalli in the second saf, and that would be a barrier, and the person who was on your right side can walk in front of you and then that person. I don't know whether you could understand that or not, but that's okay as well. You must have seen that in the masajid sometime, that you want to cross and the brother sitting there, he would just put his hand and put it on the carpet to let you go in front of him. So that is okay. So if you put something in front of a person who is praying because he forgot to do so, that's okay as well. So you put the chair in front of him. If you do not find anything, you can actually put your bag, if it is at least a foot long, from up to the elbow side, from hand to elbow. So that would be okay as well, inshallah ta'ala. And if you want to cross someone and you put that in, you can walk in front of that person. So I hope it's clear then. Sutra. So the reason I dwelled on this too much is the fact that I think we do make a lot of mistakes and people are too careless. Now you would find some people going in front of you just straight after one saf, and that is based on the opinion of some of the other imams. They take that view and they would just let the person go in front of just one saf, means where your sajda place is, they just go ahead of that and they say it's okay. So that's their view. Let them carry on, don't fight over it, and you just do your bit. And when you are the person who needs to go out, you make sure that you either wait go from behind, or at least move in front of two safs at least, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah give us tawfiq. Now, few slides on non-offensive actions in Salah, which means there were some actions which were disliked, but there are some which are not. Just to know that, it would make a little bit, uh, would make it easy to understand the wisdom behind it, and also some of the actions which are not offensive, we shouldn't be too concerned about them. So, if someone has a robe and he ties it from the in the center, that's perfectly fine. It's actually preferred because it would cover the nakedness. So, if someone has got two sheets hanging, from right and left, or long sheets, half here, half there, and he ties it, is better. In those days, people used to wear just two sheets. It's better to tie it so that you do not, you get better covering. If you are putting your sword with you in the sheath, obviously, then it's perfectly fine. It is not disliked, provided that it does not disturb you, it does not distract you. Sometimes you have your robe, a cloak, a tunic, and you just put it on yourself rather than putting your hands in the sleeves. So if you just put that on, which is hanging, there is an opinion among the Hanafi scholars that you can do that and it is okay. But it is, even then, it is preferred that we shouldn't do it because it has some similarity to sadl. We mentioned in makruha, the sadl is not allowed. It is disliked. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade us to do sadl in prayer, and sadl means having two long ends of sheet or scarf or muffler which is hanging while you're doing sajda, or sorry, ruku. When you're performing ruku, is hanging in front of you, or just hanging, because every time you go in ruku and sajda, you move up and down, they would distract you by their movement. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade people to do sadl in prayer. Likewise, if your tunic is such that it has hanging sleeves in front of you, that it would do the similar thing. So it is better to avoid it. Alhamdulillah, we don't see this. Alhamdulillah. If the Quran or the copy of Quran is in front of you, or a sword is hung in front of you, there's no harm in praying behind that. That's perfectly fine. Obviously, you're not looking at that Quran and reading from it. That's a different matter. We discussed that before. It would nullify your prayer. It is permissible in Hanbali school and in Shafi school as well, actually, but Hanbali more so, that you can read from the Mus'haf during the prayer. And that is why you see in Taraweeh, people are holding their Musahif, and Imam likewise is holding his Mus'haf sometime in some prayer in some places, but it is actually not allowed. In Hanafi school, it actually nullifies your prayers. One of the mafasid of the prayer. If someone is sitting in front of you reading Quran and you are behind him, then it's okay. Your prayer is fine. It is not disliked. It is okay. If you have got some candles in front of you, so there's some people saying because this candle has fire in it, and Zoroastrians, Magians, they worship fire, so we shouldn't be praying like this. But that is a different type of fire. This lamp has this candle has a small amount, a very small and short fire. That is okay. That is not a problem, inshallah ta'ala. But alhamdulillah, we don't do that. It's all like obsolete sort of. So you may ask, why do we discuss this? Well, for one, we are covering a book. Whatever it says in the book, we just follow that as Imam Shurun Bulali, and this is the right of the author of any book that we go through, that we pay respect and keep it as they have done. And that is why even if there was any mistake, it is published in the same way, but it has been corrected, that it will be corrected in the footnote to say that there is perhaps a typo. So we do not correct that. Why? Because this is written by a person, this is his property, rahmatullah alayh, and he has left the world without his permission. We shouldn't be making any changes. Inshallah ta'ala, there will be barakah in it, and we just copy it just to keep the tradition, keep the transparency of the document. And likewise, we learn exactly the same. So that is first reason. Second reason is, if we do not know these basic things, and these things which may be quite situational, and it was needed then 600 years ago, there may come a time that we would need these again, where we wouldn't have electricity. Who knows? We might not have electricity in the future. And to be honest, maybe 2 weeks ago, if I said it, you would have said, "Oh, I can't believe that." But now, in the current situation, everyone is sitting in their homes, fearing the worst. I think we can all see that can happen. May Allah save us all and protect us all, inshallah ta'ala. Likewise, praying and prostrating on the prayer mat or any mat which has some pictures of animate objects, living objects. As long as you're not doing sajda on that, it's okay. Because you are actually, by stepping on it, showing disregard and disrespect, which means that it is okay, but it is khilafu awla. Khilafu awla in a sense that it is slightly less preferable, not makruh, not disliked, but less preferable. It is preferred to not do so. And the reason is clear, which is that you will be distracted. If you had a picture of something there, in going into ruku and going into sajda, you'll be thinking, oh, what is that color, design? You might get distracted. And we know our prayers are, subhanallah, we get distracted by even a small sigh of someone standing behind us, someone opening the door, our mind goes straight there. So looking at the picture would just definitely be much more of a distraction. So we should try and avoid it. Killing a snake or a scorpion or any other animal that might harm you, if there's a need for killing, you can kill it. In fact, the view of Hanafi school is, and many others, is you can kill it even if it means that you have to do extra action. So if you've done more than few actions, 3, 4, 5 kicks or hits or whatever, you striking is several times, it will, according to some, would not nullify your prayer. However, the most correct view in the Hanafi school is that it will nullify your prayer because of amal kathir. And amal kathir is when you do more than 2 actions, which is about 3 or more actions in one particular rukun, one particular action of the prayer. So one rukun being qiyam, when you're standing. Ruku is another action. Doing Sami Allahu liman hamida qawma, standing up again, is another action. In sajda, another action. Sitting between 2 sajda, jalsa, is another action. So in any of those actions, if you have done unnecessary movement action more than 3 times or more, then your prayer is nullified. Or you have done one action, but it is such that the person who is looking on you, the onlooker, someone who is observing you, someone who is passing by and look at you, someone who is standing there and looks at you, someone who is doing his prayer behind you and he looks at you, and he feels that actually you are not praying, because that action was such that it is not in keeping with the demand of the prayer. I mean, it doesn't fit with the idea of prayer. So one would think, no, he's not in prayer. Then even one action in that situation will nullify your prayer. It's called amal kathir. So amal kathir could be understood either doing 3 actions which are okay. For example, just scratching your beard once, second time and third time. That will nullify your prayer. Or you have done complete, stretching your both arm up in the air. This is just one action, yet someone who is coming and looking at you, or someone is standing behind and looks at you, he would know that you're not praying. He wouldn't guess it at all, which means that you are not praying. So it would nullify your prayer. That's amali kaseer. So if you look at Quran, that is amali kaseer, because you keep looking at that and reading. Likewise, if you did these 3 strikes or so to kill that scorpion or snake, then you have nullified your prayer. But what it means when the Imam says it is okay, it means it's not offensive. It means that you would not be sinful for breaking that prayer, because breaking your prayer intentionally is a sinful act. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُبْتِلُوا أَعْمَالِكُمْ. Don't nullify your action. Don't make your actions void and null. So it is not easy. Sometimes people think, oh, when I started, I didn't have my intention. Or I had the intention, but I wasn't focusing. My concentration is not great. Perhaps I didn't recite Surah Fatiha properly. With all those different confusions and a bit of obsessions and few doubts here and there, I want to break my prayer. Let's start again. That is not allowed. You can't do that. You cannot break your prayer unless there is a Shari'i reason to break it. So do not do that. Only twice. But that is offensive as well, disliked, but it does not nullify your prayer. If you've done the 3rd time, then your prayer is gone. Any action 3 times, it will nullify your prayer. But if you've done twice, then it is disliked, yet it does not nullify your prayer. So what it means that he is not offensive means he would not be sinful. He would not be sinful. And likewise, coming to this is the same ruling as the ruling in the person who is crossing you and you pushed him and that person got killed, so you would not be sinful. Okay, so obviously you would never do that, inshallah ta'ala. If one has to shake their garment just with a minimal movement, and minimal movement means that it is not amali kaseer. You're not doing it 3 times, you not keep shaking it, So it is because you want to make your clothes come a bit in shape, or because it's stuck here and there, it may make you fall over or whatever. So it's okay. And likewise, if there was dust and you want to just make sure that they're okay. So little movement and little shaking of the garments is okay, but don't do it, like some people do for their, cloth, for their creases. They don't want to make it, get bit creases on their clothing. That doesn't make sense. If someone laughs in prayer, so that's a question someone just raised. Laughing is a nullifier of the prayer. So there's 3 types of laughter. So laughter is laughter, but with regards to smiling. So the three things that you can do. So number 1 is when you just smile to the point that there's no sound at all. Then it is khilafu awla. It is okay. It doesn't give you any sin, and you're okay with that. But if you smile in such a way that there's some sound with it, so your laughter there is a sound, but that sound is only heard by yourself, not the person standing next to you. And if there was no one there, it doesn't matter. You can imagine if the person was standing next to you, would my laughter be heard by him or not? If it would be, then your prayer is gone. In this case, only prayer is gone. But if you because you laughed, but if he heard it, the next person standing next to you, he heard the laughter, then your prayer and your wudu both are gone, according to Hanafi school. This laughter breaking the wudu and the prayer in this situation is differed upon, but there is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam whereby he alayhi salatu wasalam was leading prayer and it was raining. It rained a day or so before, or evening before, and there was a small puddle created in the masjid. So in that saf, a blind sahabi started coming in to join the jama'ah. While he was doing it, he ended up falling in that puddle. And it is quite natural for people when they find an elderly or old man, some adult, falling over, or slipping, they tend to laugh. So few Sahaba started laughing. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after completion of the prayer, turned around and he asked, "Who were laughing? Who of you were laughing?" So these Sahaba stood up. He said, "Okay, go make wudu and then pray again." So according to some Imams, this was a punishment for them specifically. And then, although the hadith has some da'uf, so some just reject it based on the fact that they do not follow any da'if hadith. They say this is da'if hadith, we're not going to take it. Hanafi school is very particular about that. They say there is a hadith and there is difference of opinion whether this is completely da'if or it has got mild weakness. So according to Hanafis, there's mild weakness. Even then, even if it's weak, we should be following the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when there is when there is this some weakness and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned a hadith, it is 50% or more attributed to him. It is better to follow that rather than your own desires or your own understanding or using your own intellect. So we actually follow the word of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this case, which actually clarifies the point, clarifies the idea that Hanafis do not follow hadith. Actually, this hadith is only followed by Hanafis. So Hanafis actually follow even a weak hadith. So this doubt is completely baseless. Yes, when there is a contradiction, apparent contradiction, a conflict between a hadith and Quranic ayah, then even a sahih hadith, they would go for Quranic ayah if they cannot square the circle, if they cannot work on both. Ideally, they would try to work on both, but if not possible, then they have to take one, and they would prefer Quran over hadith, which is alhamdulillah a deep thinking, inshallah ta'ala. And there's a blessing in that, because Quran takes priority anyway. And if someone has dust on their forehead, they can wipe it as well. Whether you do it in the prayer or after the prayer, that's all okay, inshallah. Likewise, sweat. Now, looking here and there in the prayer, we covered that in our makruhat, but let's just, and actually nawaqil as well, because there are 3 stages of that as well. So if someone is praying and he just moves his eye to the right or left to look at something for a need, then that's perfectly fine. There's no problem with that. This is okay. You're just turning your head here and there to look for something when you need it. But one should try and avoid it if there was no need. Even if they didn't need to look at that and they did it, it is not sinful and it is not disliked. But if they move their eyes and their face as well, so they turn their face to the right or to the left, then this is disliked. This is makruh. This is disliked. And if they move their chest away from Qibla, then this is a breaker or nullifier of the prayer. It would nullify your prayer. And finally, there's no problem praying on rugs, carpets, as long as you pray on those and put your head on the ground in such a way, with such a strength or such a force, that you could feel the firmness, the stiffness, or the hardness of the earth. If someone puts a piece of cloth, especially if you're praying in hot weather on the ground, it may be very hot or very cold, you can put something there. That's not a problem, provided you feel it is not thick enough to make you. So that is why praying on the bed would not be allowed, because if you pray and do sajda on the bed, and no matter how much you press, you cannot feel the hardness of the surface underneath. So on the carpet is okay, but it hints to the point that we should try our best when we are prostrating on our carpets or on our prayer mats, that we do a bit extra effort and not just put our head, rather press our head on the ground in order to achieve that, inshallah ta'ala. Ideally, one should try and pray on the ground. That's the best. There's a lot more humility in that. If that's not possible, something which is part of earth, something which is a bit natural, which earth produces, has got some link to the earth, like palm leaves or any leaves, grass in the mosque, is better than carpet. And this is why some schools, that especially Shia school, the Jafri school, you must have seen that they always put some stone or clay or a piece of paper, even because they say this piece of paper is from wood, which is better than on the carpet. So that is the. So just to clarify that, we have differences with Ahl Tashayyu, which is fine, but that is more to do with their aqidah. That's more to do with the aqidah. But when it comes to their, not the aqidah, but the practices, fiqh, then alhamdulillah, there are many differences, but even then, there is leeway. So, in this regard, their view is not wrong to put something in front and do sajda. But there has been this exaggeration, I would say, when they always want to have, some of them would want to have a dust or clay from certain places, and then they would want that to be there all the time. And that is perhaps going beyond. But generally, the idea is to pray on the ground, not on the carpet, putting something soft or something from the earth. So that means that when you perform sajda, your head is on that hard or thick, piece of clay or whatever, and yet or stone, and you can't touch the ground with you can't touch your nose cannot touch the ground. So you bit. I don't know how you do that, but sometimes they can get like if you have not very long nose, it wouldn't touch the ground, and which is part of your sajda, inshallah ta'ala. It's preferred that way. So do on the ground, if not on leaves and grass, if not, then on carpet is okay as well. And finally, you can repeat. This was the question asked. So this is in the book, alhamdulillah. If you are praying in nafil prayer, if you're praying in nafil here means in fiqh, nafil generally means anything. When we make it absolute, like rather than saying sunnah, it means anything other than fard. Okay, so not in fiqhi term, but rather the linguistic way. Linguistically, nafil means anything other than fard. So not in fard and wajib, but supererogatory, not obligatory. So supererogatory actions, when you're performing your nafil, sunnah muakkada, then you can repeat the chapter in the surah. So you could say Surah Asr in the first and in the second rakat. It's okay. It is not offensive, but it's less preferable. Preferable is to do the different chapters, inshallah ta'ala. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite, and there are certain narrations about that, inshallah ta'ala. In tahajjud, he would do certain surah repeatedly. But that's fine. In fard prayer, there's no mention of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Sahaba ever doing it, so one should try and avoid it. And that's it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.